everyone.
Good
Before we
evening.
start, just a reminder that we are recording the studies. You will go live on YouTube, so if you're not comfortable in participating in a live recording, you are free to mute yourself, to hide behind the camera, or to leave the meeting, okay? So, today is a very special day. We're going to do something a little bit different in the sense that we are going to study only one question of the Spirit's book, and we are going to keep discussing it. It's one of the most important questions of the Spirit's book. Some people say the most important. That talks about know thyself. And there is a very short answer from the spirits, and then there is a larger explanation by Saint Augustine. It is a question that can generate a seminar, a full study course, and it's really relevant in terms of what we are going through. I think it's relevant that we stop and talk about it. Talk about what we are doing, how we've been feeling. Because if you remember what we said, the two main reasons for Spiritism to be spread is first to console and then to enlighten. And in these times we are going through, consolation is the most important thing that Spiritism can offer to us. And I think when I was reading this question, and actually this was last week, I thought maybe we should dedicate the whole class to study this question, to share, to talk about anything we're going through, to talk about how we are analyzing ourselves, how we are dealing with everything that we're going through. So I'm going to share.
Very good, very good.
You have it there.
Yes.
Self-knowledge.
Self-knowledge.
Yes, we're not going to read the whole question. We are going to read part by part. So we are going to be reading and stopping as we go through, because I think it's important that we discuss every small part of it. And then after we finish, we can continue discussing each one's experience, whoever wants to share experiences, learning, understanding of their struggles, reality, or anything that is important. Okay? Paco, just read the first question and answer.
Okay. What is the most effective method for guaranteeing self-improvement and resisting the attraction of wrongdoing? A philosopher of antiquity once said, know thyself.
Okay, so this philosopher was Socrates, and he didn't come up with the phrase. The phrase was one of the three maxims inscribed in the forecourt of the Temple of Apollo at Delphi in Greece, in ancient Greece. And this was the first maxim, and the second one was nothing to excess, and the third one was surety brings ruin, certainty brings ruin. So it was a phrase that Socrates, when he went there, he read and he used later when he was in one of his speeches in the writing of Memorabilia, which was not written by him, was written by the historian Xenophon. Okay, so first for us to understand, where does it come from? It doesn't come. Socrates was the one that popularized it, but he was not the one that created it. And the know thyself is a very deep concept. It's a very important concept, and it is something that as we study Spiritism, we have to focus our attention on ourselves, because as we always say in Spiritism, we cannot help others before we are in peace with ourselves. If we are not in peace with ourselves, we become a burden to others and we cannot assist others. So to help ourselves, to be aware of our reality, of our situation, it is fundamental to know ourselves. Okay?
It is.
So let's read the first paragraph of the item
Okay.
8.
Okay. 8, we fully admit the wisdom of its saying, but self-knowledge is precisely what is most difficult to achieve. How can we acquire it? Do what I myself used to do during my life on earth. At the end of each day, I would assess my conscience, review everything that I had done, and would ask myself whether I had failed in some duty, whether someone might have reason to complain of me. It was thus that I arrived at knowing myself and in seeing what there was in me that needed to be reformed. If you review all your actions of the day, every evening, asking yourself whether you have done good or bad, and praying for enlightenment from God and your guardian angel, you would acquire great strength for self-improvement because God would assist you. Ask yourself these questions: what you have done, what was your aim, whether you have done anything that you would find fault for in another, or whether you have done anything that you would be ashamed to admit. Also ask yourself, if God called me into the spirit life at this moment in time where nothing is, move it up, nothing is, move it up, yeah, where nothing is hidden, would I dread seeing anyone? Review what you may have done. First, against God. Second, against your neighbor. And lastly, against yourself. The answers to these questions will either settle your conscience or reveal some wrong that you will have to remedy.
Okay.
Very good.
So the question is already very interesting, because it says, we fully admit the wisdom of the saying, but self-knowledge is precisely what is most difficult to achieve. Why is most difficult to achieve? Because we bring with ourselves everything that we have lived throughout our evolution, throughout all our incarnations. So our tendencies reflect who we really are and what have we accumulated throughout our incarnations. But a lot of who we are is really in a way hidden in our inconscious, in our unconscious side. We have the conscious, the subconscious, and the unconscious. And we need to access our deeper selves to learn about our tendencies and to work to remedy what our inferior tendencies. So when again, we don't want to discuss politics here, and we don't want to get very deep into present day current events, because then we deviate from what we are really here trying to do. But let's say everything that is going on out there, the manifestations, the Black Lives Matter. So what is our first reaction when we see the scenes that are out there? It will tell ourselves of our tendencies. If we really first pay attention of our reactions, if our reactions are of anger, of any other sentiments that we have, and again, each one of us are going to have a different reaction to events. And I'm talking about this event because it's what's really going on. But how are we reacting to it? And how should we be reacting to it? In Spiritism, we learn a lot of things, but from learning to become part of who we are, as we mentioned many times and discussed here many times, it's a big step. So when we go deep into ourselves and we look at our tendencies, we can do that like Saint Augustine recommended here. Review all your actions of the day every evening. We all know that. We read the Spirit's book many times. But how many of us really do that on a regular basis? I don't think almost any of us do it. I don't. So it's there. If we look at our actions during the day, because why every day? Because life happens, and if I ask you, what exactly did you do Thursday, 1 month ago, 4 weeks ago? You don't remember. You may remember important things, but small things that may have meant nothing to you, but may have meant a lot to someone that you react to, may make a difference in addressing your own issues. So let's say let's look at today. You had a discussion in the morning with you went in the shop and you had a discussion with a vendor, a small discussion. You didn't really pay much attention, and in 1 week you have forgotten about it. But if you think tonight and you analyze it, what happened? Why did I have this discussion? What was my responsibility on this discussion? Because our first reaction is always say that it's the fault of the other, right? It's the others to blame. But what was my responsibility in that discussion? What took me to enter into that situation? How should I have acted differently if I should have acted differently? What have I learned from it? These are experiences that if we analyze ourselves at the end of each day, we will be able to at least acknowledge some things about ourselves. And then from acknowledging to correct, then it's what we always say, to transform a bad habit in a good habit. It's a process that we have to do it, repeat, and that's the exercise that Saint Augustine proposes to us, asks us to do, because that's the way that we are going to address what is really deep inside ourselves, that may have been preconceptions or inferior tendencies or any other imperfections that we have, because we have many, that if we don't pay attention, it may go unnoticed, and it's going to repeat, and it will keep repeating until we address the issue. Again, I'm not saying it's easy, and I'm not saying that we're going to fix everything, but that's what St. Augustine is suggesting for us to do, to look at ourselves, to think, if I go back to the spiritual world during my sleep tonight, and I wake up on the other side, what am I going to regret? With whom should I have spoken that I did not? Who has any reason to think of me in a negative way for something I have done, it's my fault. Again, we cannot control what others are doing or thinking, and it's not our issue here, but our actions towards others, the reflection of what we are doing to others, and if we would like others to do to ourselves. This is also something that we have to analyze. So he says here, review what you have done, first against God, meaning have you gone against the natural law in anything that you have done today? Second, against your neighbor, have I caused any harm to anyone, voluntarily or involuntarily? Again, sometimes we make mistakes, we cause harm involuntarily. You know, we take actions that are not the best course of action, sometimes against our better judgment, but we can analyze. And lastly, again, against ourselves. What is against ourselves? Have we done anything to harm our mental state, physical state of ourselves? You know, very simple thing. Had I drank in excess and I caused harm to my physical body? Simple examples of what harm can we do to ourselves. Or have I been throughout the day with negative thoughts, hating someone or hating some things, or desiring vengeance, all these sort of things. So this is what Saint Augustine asks ourselves to do. And now I'm going to want to listen to some of you.
Well, John,
Joao, I want to share. Go ahead, Zoraida.
Yeah, Zoraida started first, Paco.
Okay, reflecting back to a couple of days back when all this life matters, and when the incident happened, I saw it as a mother. I have 3 young men, the ages of, I think, older than the one that passed away. And all I felt is, my God, I can't imagine what the family's going through. And the moments when you see that, it's so heart-wrenching, so difficult to understand, but it does happen. All for that moment, you know, what do you do? Well, look at myself and I thank God. Thank you, God, for each day that we're here. But most important was to send out prayers to this family. The most we can do is then look at your brothers and sisters when we go out now in life. Not that I disrespect it, but I find now that it's so crucial because it's needed out there. The understanding that we go through all this and we are here to improve ourselves. And so when we do as Saint Augustine is saying here, I've done that. I do that many times. At night, when I go to sleep, and I'm not going to say I do my prayers every night. No, I don't, because of how we live the busy life. We'll do it in the morning, once a week, twice a week. But to ask yourself, you know, what can I do to make this life better? You know, and it is a beautiful way of improving ourselves is to ask every day when you go and you lay your head on that pillow and say, you know, have I hurt anybody today? Did I make anybody happy? Did I make anybody smile? And that's, I believe, and then when you wake up in the morning, you make your day, a new morning. Then you say, you know, dear God, be with me today. I'm gonna do the best I can for my brothers and sisters out in the world here. And it's just a constant sort of doing good and helping not only the outside world, for myself, because we're here to improve ourselves. And I ask myself a lot of times, like you just mentioned, John, that, you know, you never know when you go to sleep, and it might be that, you know, you're going to be on the other side. And who am I going to meet? Anyone that I've hurt? You know, that's a very hurting thing, that you don't want to go and think that you're going to have someone there with hurt. And we probably are. I'm sure we're not perfect. And that's why we're here, is to improve ourselves. But it's a very good way of keeping yourself in a mind of peace and goodness. Because that's what we're here for, to learn this. And I've said this once or twice to my family members, that when we talk and things going array, I tell them about these things, you know, when we go to sleep, when we have time. I know life is hard, and you can't, you know, family, you could tell them for so much, but you can say, you know, say a prayer at night and ask God to help and assist and to improve ourselves. But I believe this Saint Augustine is, know thyself, is so crucial. It is very, very important to our enlightenment and self-improvement in this life. And surely I have a whole lot to continue on doing, but at least I know that there are reasons why we're here. And the only way we can help is help your brothers and sisters, do unto others all that we've learned throughout learning Spiritism. And this is the crucial time that, you know, we have to relate this in our lives as much as we can, for ourselves, for what life matters, for all that's going on in this life, and uniting ourselves and the world outside. I think it's much makes a big difference in working with ourselves. It's hard to look at ourselves and look in the mirror, and sometimes we might not like it, but you want to be honest, then you work with it.
Paco?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that in self-help groups, we got 12 steps, and the step number 10 is actually what you were talking about, taking an inventory at the end of the day. Quite fascinating, isn't it? That even in spiritual, the progress, the same thing is said over and over again. You mentioned also the fact that we also have to examine our unconscious, you know, because not everything is in the conscious mind. And I might want to add that in order to explore the unconscious, it's also good to pay attention to your dreams, because those are manifestations of your unconscious, okay, and how they relate to your conscious. So, you know, things that I do the step 10, not every night, but I you know, but I do it like I do every one of the activities of the day. That's and also I want to share with you that Socrates did say that an unexamined life is not worth living, because otherwise we will be going through life kind of in a robotic, reacting, like you said, instead of responding. To, you know, put a stop and say, am I reacting? Or am I responding? So actually, this know myself. It's, as you said before, this is you said it was probably the most important question here. It's probably the most important question for every single human being to ask, you know. Yes, because it is, you know, at the same time, I have to admit that this is a journey. You never stop knowing yourself. But at the beginning, we have to deal with a lot of dirty laundry, Joe.
Yes.
You understand? I have to look at my laundry, you know, and it's time for me to go downstairs to the laundromat. Yeah. You know, because there are things I don't want to see. I don't want to admit. And things that I don't want to see or don't want to admit is going to take me to, because of the unconscious that you mentioned, it's going to take me to all the things that are not so nice. I'm going to be, causing harm to others. So it's crucial. You said it before. This question is probably one of the most important questions that all of us should be asking ourselves. Thank you for allowing me to share.
Thanks, Paco. Anyone else? Danny.
I see this know yourself like incorporating the body, the physical body as well. When I was 35 years old, I decided to do yoga, just like experimenting, doing it. And it was very interesting to see how it helped in the process of trying to know myself better.
Very good.
The mind, but it's interesting movement that yoga provides to the body in that sense. Like you end up knowing yourself in a different way, and things come up outside through your body, through your physical body, your feelings, emotions, or questions you have about yourself. And it depends also if a person is very analytical, like I'm very analytical. So sometimes I have to stop myself to thinking too much. It's the opposite way. It doesn't mean change is happening the next day, right? Like, okay, I figured it out. I'm different next day. It's not like that, but I think moving the body in different ways, it's very helpful. And the one thing I would suggest is to pay attention to our self-talk, because we can beat ourselves up so much. And when we start looking inside, we might hear the words of our own selves, and they're not nice to ourselves. So what you're putting out there is the reflection of how you treat yourself. So, if you get into situations that we get every day that can be upsetting or problematic, things to do to solve or to figure it out, and if things don't go the way you're expecting or you wanted to, the self-talk can be very bad, like can actually block. Like you think you are knowing yourself, but in the end you're just beating yourself up, criticizing your own, like, oh, I should have said that, I should have done that, why I didn't respond, or things like that.
Yeah, the self-evaluation, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else? Okay. So before we continue all this conversation, last week we discussed forgiveness, right? And Philip actually asked a question about forgiveness, and we were talking about forgiveness being first to free ourselves. And then the next day was very interesting, because in my last trip, I met a boat pilot that he's a spiritist, and he lost his son when he was 20-something with cancer, and he went into a deep depression. He couldn't leave his bed for like 6 months, and then he was rescued in a sense by some spiritist lectures that his wife would put him for him to listen every day. He became more aware of the eternal truths, and after 6 months he went back to his life. Of course, you never overcome the loss of a child, but you learn to live with it, and you learn that that life goes on. And he received a message, a mediumistic message from his son, and the name of his son is André Menezes, and I thought it was beautiful, and I translated into English, and I actually sent to Philip the next day. It says, "Forgiveness was never to give a present to those who do not deserve it. It is a present we give to ourselves, so we don't poison our heart and don't chain ourselves to the offender. Forgiveness is, above all, freedom. I think this is very important in what we are going through nowadays. I'm going to copy it on the chat so you can read it, because I really liked the phrase. So it's a little bit it's a little bit about self-knowledge and knowing thyself. So if we are not able to forgive, what are we doing to ourselves? How can we learn to forgive? And with everything that is going on out there, this is very important. This is very relevant to our self-analysis, to the know thyself, because we are living a time of extremisms. You know, you have one side or the other side. There is very little of the middle way, which is the way that we should go always, right? Because extremes are never healthy. They are very similar, actually. You see people on one extreme and on the other, and in the end, they are very similar. They have, it goes to the third maxim of the temple of the Delphi, surety, ruin yourself, right? Because these people, the extremists, they have certainties, right? And those certainties, they cause a lot of pain to others, sorry, and to themselves. So I thought sorry. So I thought this phrase was very interesting. Let's read the end, Paco. Or no, the next paragraph.
You may ask, how does one judge oneself? Are we not human beings subject to the illusions of arrogance, which diminishes their flaws in their own eyes and makes it possible to find excuses for them? Mice think that they are merely practicing economy and foresight, while proud individuals might think that their pride is dignity. This is true, but there's a way of proceeding that cannot deceive you. When you are in doubt regarding any of your actions, ask yourself what your judgment would be if it were done by another. If you would find cause for reproach in another, it cannot be less reprehensible when done by you, because God's justice is universal for all. Try to discover what others think, and do not overlook the opinion of your enemies, because they have no interest in disguising the truth. And God often places them in your life to serve as a mirror to warn you in a manner more frank than that of a friend. Those who are firmly resolved in achieving self-improvement must review their conscience in order to uproot their evil inclinations, just as they uproot weeds from their gardens. Every night they should settle their moral accounts for the day, just as a businessman account for the profits and losses. They can rest assured that the former will be a much more profitable operation than the latter. Those who can say that the balance is in their favor may sleep peacefully and await the return to the spirit life without fear.
Thanks, Paco.
Wow, this is fascinating. You're right.
Yes, we can spend one class study each paragraph, right?
You were right from the get-go.
And again, this is a question. You save the number in your mind and you go back to it several times because it's important
Yes.
to read and reread.
Mhm.
We forget. And on this paragraph, it's very important because Saint Augustine said, how does one judge oneself? Aren't all human beings subject to the illusions of arrogance, which diminishes their flaws in their own eyes and make it possible to find excuses for them? Of course, when we look at ourselves, it's hard it's hard to find and to accept our flaws. But when we use what he said here, when we try to put ourselves having in the same situation on or making a judgment of our actions, going back to the very simple example that I gave previously. You had a dispute with someone in a shop that you went to buy something, right? And it's an inconsequential dispute. Now you look at it and you think, well, I was right. It was my right to do what I did. And then let's look from the side of the other person. What were they seeing in our action? Were they seeing something that we were doing that were right, or they were seeing us abusing our position, any position that we are? And then he says, listen to your enemies. They have no reason to hide the truth, because it's very easy for us to listen to the praise of our friends, to the praise of those that like us. And they are sometimes excuse our faults and not be honest because they don't want to hurt us. But our enemies have no reason to hide the truth. So what Saint Augustine here is saying is, he's not saying do not believe everything your enemies say of you. No, he said, listen to what they're saying and analyze it. If someone comes to me and says, again, let's go to the problem that we are facing. If someone calls me a racist, my first reaction would be to dismiss. I'm not. But why is this person calling me a racist? What have I done to cause them to think that I'm a racist?
Exactly.
Right?
Yes.
If after analyzing it, pondering it, I reach the conclusion, to the best of my knowledge and abilities, that I'm not, then I ignore it. But to just dismiss without self-analyzing with things that others say to us, it's an easy way out, and it's a way to avoid our conscience, dealing with our conscious or our unconscious. And again, sometimes people, especially when we are fighting with family, that I know all of us here get into fight with our families. And sometimes people say things to us that they don't mean, but sometimes they're true. Sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're just venting and they say things that are, they're just out of anger. But sometimes they're true. How can we know it if we don't analyze it? If we don't reflect on it? If someone calls, using the example he uses here, someone calls you a miser, right? Your first reaction, no, I'm just saving because, I need to save money for my future. I don't know what's going to happen. I need to, but why are they calling you miser? Why are they calling you this? Is there any reason behind it? Do they have any real cause for that? If we don't look at ourselves deeply, we're not going to learn about ourselves. We are going to continue living with our flaws, our imperfections, and we'll keep postponing dealing with them. Eventually, in our evolutionary process, we will have to deal with all our imperfections, all of them. We are not going to become a perfected spirit if we don't overcome all our imperfections. So it's sometimes they are hidden. We don't pay attention to them because they are part of us and we don't see our flaws. But when someone else calls our attention, we have to make an effort to try to analyze the reasons behind it. Otherwise, we are going to continue making the mistakes. Okay, I talked a lot. Someone else? Anyone else?
John, how could you politely, just like you said, if someone tells you something that you cannot see, let's say, how can you go about telling somebody that something is wrong and you're trying to explain to them in a very peaceful and loving way? And how could you do that? I mean,
now you're talking about finding errors on others, not in ourselves.
No. If you want to give, let's say, if you see something, and not that I'm going to point fingers, but you know, let's say your health, and you're jeopardizing your health, and you want to tell them in an uncertain way, very kind and loving, that, you know, they're going to hit bottom. And I think Paco could answer that very well. I guess they have to go through it, and you can give opinions, can you? Unless if they ask, you can give. If they don't, you shouldn't. Then I don't know.
Yeah, it depends on the person. It depends on your relationship. It depends on how much are they going to accept. Because sometimes when people come to you when they need help, you cannot sugarcoat, right? If there is a real problem, but you have to analyze if they are prepared to listen to what you have to say. Because sometimes we talk, you know, when we discuss here, people saying, oh, if it's the truth, I have to tell the truth. No, sometimes not telling the truth, it's not lying. It's not telling the truth is better if the person is not prepared to face the truth. But if the person gives you an opening,
right,
and gives you an opportunity, even if you know that they are going to react badly, you have to give your honest opinion in as much as a loving way as possible, right? It's easy to say, but it's very hard when you are in that situation, because people sometimes, they are just coming to you because they want you to give some sort of approval to their misbehaviors, right? So, you know, I'm doing this, but everybody does this. Don't you think? Well, it's not because everybody is going to jump the precipice that you're going to jump the precipice also, right? You have to, you know, each situation is a situation, and of course, when you are talking about those close to you, you have to make every effort to the best of your abilities to help them. But if they are adults, to the point that they can be helped and they want to be helped, right? You know, we are. I'm studying No Solar with another group here, and Luis is here that studies No Solar with us. And we just went through the chapter that André Luis first meets his mother, and after the happiness of him meeting his mother, he starts complaining about everything that is happening in his life. That you know, that his life in the spiritual world is misery only. And then his mother tells him, listen, with this thought process, you're not going to survive here in the spiritual world in Asula. She's honest and direct with him. That's not the way to behave here. And, you know, and he listens to them, to her. He understands. Sometimes we have to say, right? We are discussing know thyself here, but this is part of know thyself, right? Know what you can say, when you can say, and how can you be helpful. Because many times we go out and hurt people, knowingly or unknowingly. And we should try very hard to avoid hurting others.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, one way, may I? Yeah.
Yes.
I do feel that if you want to share something of a character trait that is not so, like we say, kosher, you probably may want to share that, not in terms of the person, the pointing the finger at the person, but in terms of how it's affecting you. And then you could always say, the behavior child exhibited is affecting me in such and such a way. And I would like if you can stop displaying that behavior, because sometimes what bothers us from others is in reality emotions that we feel ourselves. For example, a concrete example: this past Sunday, 3 friends of mine, I saw them hanging out on the street in celebration. And I felt angry. Back then because they had failed to call me up and ask me to join them. Okay, and I go, wow, okay, and I was already, what kind of people are you? But rather than doing that, I told myself, why am I reacting that way? What am I feeling? Well, I felt rejected. I felt abandoned. I felt unloved, and that's why I'm pointing the finger at them. So in a way, and if I wanted to improve their behaviors in terms of next time for them to call me, I could share them how I feel. Yes. And that would help me grow and also will help them grow.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
But sometimes,
what? Yeah, exactly. So the first question, why they didn't call me? That's the first question you now have to ask them, right? And maybe they didn't call you for a good reason and you never thought of that. Again, I'm just throwing out ideas.
And there's a multitude of reasons why they probably didn't call me. I mean, whoever in a crisis, everybody's like, oh boy, they probably met each other on the street. I don't know. Yeah. That's my point. Sometimes it's because, but it's not, Joe, but it's not easy.
No.
We tend to react. Yeah. We tend to react.
So let's read the rest of the the rest of the answer, and then the commentary by Kardec. So we finish this question, and then we talk about it a little bit more.
Ask yourself?
Yes.
Okay. Ask yourself clear and precise questions. Do not hesitate to ask them often. You should devote a few minutes to guaranteeing happiness that will last forever. Do you not work every day so that you may rest when you have reached old age? Is this rest not the object of your desires? The aim that helps you endure your current hardships and deprivation? What comparison is there between a few days of rest impaired by the weakness of the body and the endless rest that awaits the virtuous? Is the latter not worth a slight effort? I know that many will say, the present is certain, and the future uncertain. But this is precisely the error that we must erase from your minds by showing you your future in such a way as to leave no shred of doubt. This is why, having begun by producing phenomena designed to grab your attention by appealing to your senses, we now give you the moral teachings that each of you must in turn spread. This is what we have dictated the Spirit's book.
Read the comment by Kardec. Yeah, read the comment by Kardec.
We comment we commit many faults that go unnoticed. If we follow the advice of Saint Augustine and examine our conscience more often, we would see how many times we have failed without even realizing it, due to a lack of scrutinizing the nature and reason behind our actions. The interrogative form is more precise than a maxim that often is not applied. It requires yes or no responses that leave no room for interpretation. These are personal arguments, and by the sum of the responses, we can estimate the sum of good and evil within us.
Okay, so first, this is the end of the chapter, the third book, called Moral Laws. So it finishes with Saint Augustine telling us, we now give you the moral teachings that each of you must in turn spread. This is why we have dictated the Spirit's book. So he's one of the spirits responsible for the Spirit's book. In the beginning here, when he says, ask yourself clear and precise questions and do not hesitate to ask them often, Kardec says, ask questions precisely, questions that require yes or no for answers. Because if we ask questions that allow us to start saying, well, maybe, then we are not
open-ended. Yeah, open-ended.
Yeah, open-ended questions are good for in a sales pitch, but not in analyzing our moral aspects. So it's clear, because if we cannot say yes, we start with maybe. Yes. We don't say no, we start with maybe. Well, maybe it's a no.
Maybe, perhaps, most of the time.
Could I
could have done, I couldn't do it.
Could I have done better? Yeah. It has to be a no. If it is a maybe, it means yes, I could. You know, should I have kept my mouth shut? Maybe. If it's a maybe, you should. So these are the type of questions that we have to ask ourselves, analyzing our actions. The very simple questions that require yes or no answers. Definitive answers. That's the only way we are going to really be able to analyze ourselves, to learn about ourselves, to learn about our actions, about our tendencies, about our inclinations, that we will have to address them, to correct them if possible, or at least be aware of a problem that we have. Because being aware, you know, someone calls you a miser. That's to use the previous paragraph. So first, okay, why they're calling me that? That's the first analyzing you. And if you reach the conclusion that you are not, but at least stays in the back of your mind, well, every time you go back to the problem, you are going to reanalyze it. And then you eventually will learn more about yourself, if you are or you are not facing different situations in life, right? When someone asks for any kind of help that involves financial assistance, are you going to give it willingly? Are you going to reject? Or are you going to analyze? Are you going? So, you know, all of these will serve to answer that question that someone accused you of, you know, being a Scrooge or something like that, right? So again, these are not all the answers. It is not an easy exercise, but I think we are living in a time that this question calls deeply thoughts, because of all the struggles that we are going through, we as a society, with this pandemic, with the economic crisis, with the difficulties presenting of staying isolated, staying by ourselves, staying far from our loved ones, or staying too close with our loved ones for some people. all the time. All of this raises questions that we shouldn't be afraid to question ourselves, to face, and to go back to this question of the Spirit's book and read and reread and think about it and start at least making an effort of utilizing what we have studied in this question 919 that can help us. Yes, Renato.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Listen to, I wanted to see the whole message before I say anything. That's why I keep quiet.
Okay.
But this know thyself, I've been in a process, just sharing, for a while, and like Danielle, I'm a very analytical person as well. So I don't only ask questions here; I ask questions all the time in my life. And João knows that I've been sharing in different groups as well. That I believe I should be doing more, and but we need to keep the balance. In regards to everything that's happening, I think I shared last time that the way I was dealing was to back off a little bit, because I didn't know how to deal properly. So I wasn't ignoring, I was just put in a state of neutrality or whatever,
Preserving yourself.
yeah. And I don't know why lately I've been trying to play a game on myself, like acting like a higher spirit, and asking myself now how a high order spirit would act in a situation like that, because they are always so calm, and they don't get distracted, don't get sidetracked. And sometimes even when you see the pictures that they brought us of the high order spirit, they are always very serene. It's kind of almost emotionless, but it's not. There is emotion there, but it's a serene, something like it passes you trust and confidence. And I was like, okay, how would someone like that act in a situation that's happening right now? Because they understand that is, what we are seeing is just a point in time. So it's sad what happened. I'm not saying that, it's excusable. I was putting myself on a guy's shoes. It's complicated, but then when you open more, I was seeing more information and seeing, the guy's rap shit. He was no angel. I'm not crucifying the guy. I'm just saying that what really happened, that, this situation happened to that person. Because if we study here that our vibrational level will put ourselves in position to succeed or not, so we understand that everything is our responsibility. And yes, if you look just at this point in time, you're going to be angry, you're going to be upset, you're going to want a revenge and so forth. But when you try to apply the teachings of Spiritism, you be in that position of calm. Okay, something happened. Let me try be, sympathetic, understand, pray. But there's no need to be desperate. There's no need to, make a big fuss of it, because, everything will be amended. We will continue. He's going to have a chance. The policeman will have a chance. We know they will come together for sure to amend all that. So there's so much more than what we see, that it really brought me to a kind of a peace that, let's try to learn as much as we can with the situation. And then in closing to the know thyself is where I looked to myself and said, okay, Renato, I think you gave one step closer. All of this for just one step, right? And I'm not saying that I figured everything out. I'm just saying that in trying to really apply, you know, the Spiritist teachings in any way we can, and everyone here is gonna try to do in a different way. I'm just, you know, again, I'm trying to do in this way because it's been working, it's been an open minding with everything, and it's been a process of learning, and I'm learning a lot about myself, and I'm really happy and hopeful that you know, I'm on track, and with the help of everyone in here, we're gonna get there. No rush.
Thanks, Renato. Yeah, it's very important it's exactly the kind of analysis you have to do as a spiritist. If you are truly spiritist and you understand the natural laws of God, the laws of cause and effect, you know that everyone will have to face the consequence of their actions, and nothing goes unpunished by our own conscience. So in the end, the more evolved spirits have this peaceful behavior and demeanor because they understand better. They see from the top of the mountain, and we are only seeing what's happening around us. So they know that in the end, we will all have to evolve, to learn, and to repair our mistakes. So they are there to help and assist us in every step of the way, but they don't get angry, they don't get disappointed in us, because especially, let's say, our guardian angel, when they took this job, they know what they're going to face, so they're not going to be disappointed on us. They know our imperfections, our shortcomings, and they know what's going to, the difficulties we have ahead of us. So okay, you know, I thank you all for participating.
Wow.
I think this is a very important chapter. I liked the discussion very much. We finished now the moral laws. So next week, next Thursday, we start book 4, the last book of the Spirit's book, Hope and Consolation. We're going to talk about very interesting subjects on hope and consolation, which Renato gave us a preview when he was talking, when he talked a little bit about hope and about consolation. Thanks, Renato, for introducing the next class. And I'm going to stop share here now. But for all of those that are here, today we start a new chapter also in our study groups. On the second part, we are going to start studying the Medium's book. So for those that have been with us for a long time, you know that the second part of our Thursday meetings is the study of mediumship. And we have studied the Medium's book a couple of times already in these 20 years, and 20 years. And now, and then we went through several other books, booklets, and we just studied Heaven and Hell, which was the first time we studied in the mediumship group. But then, you know, I'm talking to Elmo and to Julio, we thought that because we're doing a virtual meeting, and because we have people here that are not in our regular classes, we thought it was good to go back to basics and start studying the Medium's book again. So today, in the second part, Elmo will be conducting us on the study of the Medium's book. Okay, so you are all invited and welcome to join us. And now I'm going to ask Zoraida to do our final prayer. Zoraida, you are on mute. You're still mute, Zoraida. Zoraida is not being able to unmute herself. I tried, but it's not working. So let's...
I got it.
Oh, you got it. Okay, go ahead.
our spiritual benefactors, our guardian angels. With our hearts full of gratitude, we thank you again for allowing us to take this meeting to a higher level of understanding, of consoling, and giving all that we can to help each other in all that's going on in this planet Earth. May we take all that we have learned here today to relate it in our lives as best we can with the help of our guardian angels and Almighty God. We thank you, dear Father, and allow us to close this part of the meeting with peace and serenity in our hearts. And with that in mind, we ask permission to close this part of the meeting tonight. So be it.